Thank you all for coming today. Just by way of introduction, I'm joined by Jermaine Clark, who's the VP of Operations at Techify. As Terry mentioned, my name is Brendan Howe. Jermaine and I do, on a regular basis, sessions like this where our goal is to educate folks on how to use technology better, keep up with technology trends, but do it in a way that is focused on non-technology people. Executive focus type of things. We also run monthly webinars, which if you're interested, you can pop on our website, techify.ca, and we'll go through webinars. They're primarily focused on productivity and cybersecurity. The kind of two biggest things that we do for our clients. So before we get into what we are going to do today, I'll tell you a little bit more about Techify. So what we do as a company, the way we describe what we do is we help folks move from reactive IT support to intelligent technology. We find the world is full of IT companies, IT folks that are focused on fixing problems, solving issues as they come up, that sort of thing. What our team is focused on is using best practices standards to save time and reduce risk for our client base and allow businesses to align their technology strategy a little bit more with their overall business goals. And at the end result, what we all want to achieve is a consistent computing experience so that all of our teams, whether they're working remotely, working on-site, working in a lounge area at the Board of Trade, have that consistent and effective computing experience. And the folks that we work with, businesses, nonprofits, are predominantly technology strategic. They're looking at technology as a strategic area where they can improve their businesses. So let's talk for a minute about the world that we're living in these days. So we are overcome by apps. We have an application for every problem in our business. Every issue, anything we want to do, you need purchase orders, I got an app for you. You need to invoice, I got an app for you. You need to have a payroll system, we got an app. You need to have vacation tracking, we got an app. And the interesting thing about this is there's a huge industry, as we know, software as a service industry funded by big private equity companies. And it's created all of these great applications and bits of technology for all of us to use. And so then we go and we implement them to solve different business challenges. And then what we end up have done is in so many organizations, we've created a new challenge. And that challenge is we haven't actually solved a productivity issue. We've created a world where we have a bunch of applications that do a bunch of different things, but none of them talk to each other. And it's really hard to get the data out of there and get the data in a place where we can use it, make actionable business decisions that will, in the end, improve our business, improve the productivity of our teams, better support our teams, that sort of thing. And so our kind of genesis of this session to talk about using Microsoft 365 better from a productivity perspective is to help solve this issue. I think we're moving into a landscape with technology now where it's more important to simplify. It's more important, it's almost less important the functionality of the applications and having the data in the right place and not having to switch back and forth all the time between application after application after application. Like you just think about what we do to our teams is we say, hey, welcome to the company. Here are the 15 different applications that we use. Here's some on-demand training, or talk to Sally or Jim or Bob around the corner and they'll give you a little bit of training. And then switch back and forth between these 15 applications. And could you be really productive, because we're a little bit short on staff right now because it's hard to find people. Please do your job to the best of your ability. So the challenge is, how do we deal with that, right? And we have this cool world with Microsoft 365 and an opportunity that we think is not being taken advantage of very well right now. So here's a little bit more about the climate that we're in. The Bank of Canada publishes something called the Business Outlook survey. And I think any conversation about productivity in business needs to have a little bit of context that we're going into a period of declining confidence, or we are in a period of declining confidence. People are worried about what's going on with the economy, right? Interest rates are up, various indicators, lots of concerns about what's going on from an economic perspective. So lots of business leaders, their confidence in where the economy is going has been reducing over time, and the Bank of Canada is seeing it month after month after month in their results. The interesting thing that we find in the technology world is, despite that declining confidence in the economy, there's still, according to that same Bank of Canada Business Outlook survey, still a desire to invest more from a capital perspective in business. And people are still looking, despite challenges with the economy, they're still looking to invest and still have a desire to invest. And according to a Canadian Federation of Business survey that they did, I believe it was in December, the area where folks are most likely to invest is computer and office technology. So what that tells us is people are looking to boost productivity. People are looking to figure out ways of how do we deal with resource challenges and constraints and that sort of thing. And one of the ways we're going to do it is through our investment in technology. And of all the stuff that we're complaining about from a cost perspective of this is from the same Canadian Federation of Independent Business study from December, technology's pretty far down the list in terms of a cost area where people are really concerned about. There's a whole bunch of price issues, cost issues that we're a lot more concerned about. So what that tells me, and it tells us in what we're seeing out in the marketplace, is people want to continue to invest in technology. People want to continue to use the technology that they have more effectively. Okay, so how are we going to do this? How are we going to be more efficient? How are we going to better utilize the stuff that we're already paying for? We're talking about today using Microsoft 365 to do exactly that. So that is the topic. We want to deal with that app universe, that wide universe of too many apps, and reduce the amount, simplify for folks, figure out ways that we can drive better workflow and better efficiency. Anybody ever seen this?
Yeah, so all the people who use their Microsoft suite on a regular basis, there's 32 applications here. We took the 4 out earlier that everybody knows about. And the reason that we give out a prize for the people that pick the most obscure ones that we don't think anybody else is using. But all of these applications already exist in your subscription. So we've delivered. We were going to tell you how to better use what you already pay for, and there you go. You got it. So just go ahead and use all of this. Presentation's done. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, thanks for coming today. We did a informal survey of folks when we start working with them and looking at their usage of Microsoft 365, even across our client base. And we found that of did we say 32 or 34 applications here? Maybe 32. On average, people aren't using about 27 applications. So think about those monthly bills that you're paying to Microsoft. You have about 27 applications, 27 opportunities to better utilize something that you're already paying for. So here's what we go to the feedback, biggest bit of feedback from all of you about wanting to better utilize the stuff that you're already paying for. We're going into an environment of some economic uncertainty. We may not want to spend more money. We may want to be a little bit more cautious. Hey, what's our opportunity? This is a huge opportunity. Okay, now then we need to come to how do we do this, right? How do we make sure that we do this in a smart way? Well, something that we fundamentally believe that we've seen across our client base, which is super important, is we need to have a productivity roadmap. So if you want to drive better productivity, like I play hockey and I coach hockey, and one of the things we do is use very simple ideas, simple terms, simple strategies, simple ideas, right? Hockey players sometimes aren't the smartest in the world. I coach 13-year-olds. They're definitely not the smartest in the world. So we take very simple concepts. So what we want to do is take something really complex, which is productivity and enabling productivity with our staff, and simplify it, right? So we've taken it into 3 stages. And as business owners, what we like to do is we like to automate everything, right? Give me a bunch of dashboards, give me a bunch of really cool data. Automate, I don't need staff, right? We were talking about this earlier. I don't need staff, just let me automate everything. Then I don't have to deal with those HR issues and I don't want to put you guys out of business. We'll always have HR issues. But if I could automate those processes and stuff like that, and that's where we want to get to. But the challenge is that stage 3, that process automation. And we've seen so many times, because this is the exciting part of technology, right? Process automation, business intelligence, robots, AI, all that sort of cool stuff. Chat, GPT, yeah, which is going to change the world, right? And that's the exciting part. But we don't really talk about stage 1, right? We don't talk about, and so many times we see clients dive into stage 3, but they don't have the foundation right. So they have leaky pipes in the foundation, in the plumbing, right? And so if you don't address the stage 1 stuff, you're going to try and go after stage 3, the exciting part, and unfortunately you're going to fail and you're going to get stuck. So we're going to take you through what we see as stage 1, stage 2, to get us up to stage 3, where we want to get to when we have all that actionable data and process automation and fun stuff.
Sounds good. Why don't I take stage 1?
You should take
stage 1. Yeah, I'll take stage 1. So we'll start off with all the non-fun stuff, and then I'll leave all the fun stuff for Brendan to cover later on in the presentation. But if we're going to go ahead, stage 1, build a foundation. I always have this discussion with team members, people I meet with, public discussions, etc. When you think about basic training, if I were to ask for a show of hands, how many people have heard of basic training? Yeah, okay, we got some people who have some American friends. Excellent. So basic training in the Army, it's the groundwork. They come in and you got to survive basic training to become an officer. Okay. I flipped that on its head and I said, well, you can't become an officer if you don't pass basic training. So really, basic training is foundational. It's the things that you build everything on. And if you don't have a good foundation, if you don't pass basic training, you can't go on to do anything fun. You can't become a SEAL. You can't fly planes. None of it. You get kicked out. So you need a strong foundation to start with. And when you talk about basic training, I'd like you to think about your organization and your footprint as foundational training. All the things that matter so that you can then build on top of it and get to the fun stuff in stage 3. So with that, this is my favorite slide. This is what most of our incoming clients and their server rooms and network closets and stuff look like, and they have a whole person that they pay to stay in there and make sure that they untangle everything. This is the servers of the past. If you want all your stuff, you don't need to lock it up and put it in your office and create a whole jungle of colored cabling to have fun with every time there's a network issue. People are unplugging stuff everywhere. You got to get out of that space, move all your stuff to a centralized location, and get all your data in one place. It's easier to protect it. It's easier for you to maintain and manage it. And then it sets up the foundation for you to take all the stuff that you want to do from an automation perspective, from a BI perspective, an intelligence perspective, and you can pull it all from that foundational piece. So get rid of the servers, get rid of the closet. Well, maybe you still need some switches and things, but get rid of the servers at least. Yeah? And then you move everything over to SharePoint. So when we talk about centralizing your data space, SharePoint has lots of meanings everywhere. If you take away one thing from today about SharePoint, it's that is your common data source. When you build your foundation of your data, it all has to be in the same place so that you can pull every application that you add. That application slide we had, there was 197 applications on that slide. And none of them were Candy Crush, which means I also have additional applications on my phone and in my life that I need to manage. So if I can do less with the work applications and I stick within the framework of the 32 apps that I'm using, or 34, then I'm in a better place. Now, all the data that's ingested in your SharePoint now allows you to do whatever you want from whichever landing page, all from the same common data source.
This is a foundational piece because if people are still emailing around attachments in your organization, and if people are still logging in through VPN connections, then you're never going to get to that place where you achieve a level of productivity. There's a great research paper that was put out that talked about saving 4 hours of work per week per employee, and if you're properly utilizing the cloud. And it was a bunch of little things like, okay, if we don't have to use a VPN connection to access our data, if we don't have to deal with VPN issues, if we stop emailing attachments around and we start sharing links, and then people can work on the same document at the same time. If all of a sudden we're not confused about what version, is this version 6.23 or is this version 8.21, that we can see, we can get some version control. We can go back if we need to go back and pull previous versions. We can properly use Teams because SharePoint is the foundation from a file perspective of Teams. So that's why this is so important. It's such a foundational piece. And it's critical to being able to get those big, ugly, loud, noisy, power-sucking servers out of the back of the offices for those, if any of you still have them. Because one of the things that those servers power is file servers. And we replace file servers with SharePoint. What else are we doing on Foundation?
So the other part of it is the security portion of it. We always love to have something about security in there. As Brendan said earlier, webinars typically focus on getting more productive while staying secure, so you can work from everywhere. And Azure Active Directory is the new way that they're doing that authentication and security in the cloud space. Because again, right now you log into your office, you join the VPN, you'd watch it, little lights, watch little lights go. Once it's connected, you log in, and then you're like, yeah, I'm going to get to the file server. It's fairly slow, it's clunky. The VPN drops halfway through a file transfer, you have to start it over. But that authentication process of logging into your VPN and then into your server is all now managed with identity credentials that go straight through Azure Active Directory now. So this is linked to yourself, your personal identity related to your job, and it provides you access to whatever you need from anywhere, literally anywhere that has an internet connection. You can put your thumbprint, you can smile at your computer camera, it'll log you in. And it now has 500 different ways that you can verify your own personality logging in to now securely access every little piece of the information that's now in your foundational SharePoint space. So security is massive. If you want to work from the Cayman Islands, or you want to be on your boat 341 days out of the year, and you've got a connection, Starlink, for those who want to do the boat one, you got a connection. You can authenticate from anywhere because you're no longer tied to a brick and mortar space. You're no longer tunneling in and hoping for the best with your security as you work and try to protect your data and your employees wherever they're working from.
And I think that piece is critical. If you have people working remotely and they're using VPN connections, they're not properly secure. So a foundational piece to move forward is cybersecurity, right? If you remember, there was a hack where a pipeline on the East Coast got shut down for a bunch of days, an oil pipeline. And a lot of these hacks that we hear about with people getting ransomware, organizations getting ransomware and stuff, it's pretty basic stuff. In that case, it was an individual that was VPNing in, and the organization didn't have two-factor authentication set up. So their VPN got hacked, they got ransomware, they got held hostage, and then oil wasn't flowing on the eastern seaboard for several days, which was pretty crazy. And I think the other piece of this is important. It enables that work from home, work remotely, hybrid work. Whether you're working from here, you're working from the office, you're working from home, and it creates that security. And then if you have staff whose email accounts are getting hacked, or if you're getting ransomware, there's no way you can start looking at technology from a strategic level, right? You're fighting too many fires. And we want to get away from that.
So just to kind of sum this up into kind of one ecosystem slide, right? You've got your Azure Active Directory, you've got all this stuff coming in there, and then it's the suite of products that you use most commonly. And I think everybody listed OneDrive, they listed Teams, and that little shield over there is your security portion in Azure. And this is what the ecosystem looks like for the everyday user on a regular basis.
So if you take that checklist in front of you, stage one, and you can take this home with you, you can do, as part of this workshop, you can do a little self-analysis and think about, is your company using SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams? Are you into the world of Azure AD and Intune? Intune is part of that security infrastructure. Are you using a voice over IP phone and using Teams? Are your staff going back and forth from a Ring Central or some other phone, or God forbid you have a desk phone, right? Or do you have things integrated into Teams so you remove one of the applications that you're making your staff deal with on a daily basis? Are you just using Outlook as an email tool, or are you using it in a more advanced way? How do you use Outlook?
Religiously. So yeah, I mean, to wrap this up in a little bit of a bow, signs that you are not in stage one or have not completed your foundation would be that you still have servers, you're not in SharePoint, you're using Outlook without any of the color coordination, meeting responses, templates, all the stuff that you do on a repeatable structure day in, day out. If you haven't got a template that helps you to draft an email in 10 seconds versus typing one for 5 minutes, then you're still using it like it's just a one-hit tool. You need to be using it right. If you don't have color coding and conditional formatting in your Outlook to say, well, this is coming from a vendor, this is coming from a client, oh no, I forgot about my daughter's recital today and I need to go pick her up. You need to be able to use this tool to make yourself more efficient, more productive, so that you don't have to focus on all of the smallest details. You can think a bit more in that bigger picture. So,
what color are the emails from your wife?
You know what? I think that's for the next presentation. I think we'll leave that one out of today.
Technology, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's talk about stage two. So when we go into stage two, we are in a world of, if you think about stage one was bring the horse to water, right? We want to create the foundational pieces. We want to put everything in place in order to allow our staff to be more productive, right? If you're trying to make people productive, as we said, using VPN or outdated technology, and you're making it hard for them, then there's no way you're ever going to progress along the productivity roadmap. But once you put the right things in place, the foundation, now we need to figure out, how do we get our staff to use this stuff? How do we get our teams to adopt and use it? And we can't just kind of say, okay, we've moved to SharePoint now. Biggest thing that we see, it's hilarious. Company spends gobs and gobs of money, moves to SharePoint, and then 6 months later, the CEO of the company is still emailing around attachments. And nobody has actually adopted it. Nobody's changed how they work. They've kind of looked at the old way of IT. They're still working the same way that they used to. So we've got to focus on that adoption and utilization. So here are we wanted to give you some ideas. There's tons of them. Like we could have given you 20 different ideas here, but we've picked some of what we think are the best ones.
I think so. Yeah, agreed. So one of the things around adopting any change, the biggest challenge is nobody wants to change. I hate change. It's terrible. But if it's something that's easy, that I can kind of move forward with without having to put too much thought, training, or planning into the execution, then I'm going to be like, okay, I'll participate. And then when I start to enjoy it, then I'm going to dig deeper into it. So this is an application page for same sign-on. This is my application page. These are the 20 applications that I log into and utilize on a daily basis, sometimes hourly. And what you'll notice here, they're simple. They're little tiles that are set up. You can click on any one of these. And instead of having 25 passwords to log into each one, all of the applications are same sign-on with my Microsoft 365 credentials. So now I'm not searching for, oh, what was the password for this one or that one or the other one. I can click on the application will load. It has been authenticated through my Microsoft 365 Azure Active Directory security. And now it's real easy for me to use it. Hey, Debbie, have you completed the payroll run for this week? Well, I couldn't find my password, and I had to reset it, and I messaged IT, and IT took 2 days to get back, and now everybody's quit because nobody ran payroll. Well, now you can just click on your payroll app and log in. It's like, Debbie, come on, just click the app.
But you couldn't do this if you hadn't done the foundational piece and put your stuff into Azure AD. If authentication wasn't in Azure AD, you can't jump ahead to this.
That's right. You can't establish any of this without stage 1 security.
What's next?
Now, this one's one of my favorites. Anybody in here go to meetings and take a lot of notes? All right. Well, so that's a few people telling the truth today. All right, I like that. Thank you for participating. So I'm one of those people that get into the meeting and I'm like, yes, I'm listening to you. And you can hear in the background, click, 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 throughout the entire recording. Okay. Have your Microsoft Teams take all your notes. This is live transcription. Yes, it's magic. It's a GIF. And you've got it here. And you go into the meeting, you talk and you focus and you discuss with people, have a really interactive meeting while a transcript and the recording is being taken on the back end. And you do simple things like, here's a new way to work. Instead of saying, well, now I need to go write down the action items because that's the important part. In the call, all you do is say, okay, well, John, an action item for you will be, please come back to our next webinar. It'll be fun. So now you go back to the transcript from the day's meetings and you just put in the keyword action item and you have it. It's just Microsoft Teams.
This is right within Microsoft Teams.
Oh, yeah. Hey, we've got one believer. We're in there now. So
this is not an additional application. This is an application you're already using.
Included, you use it every day. You just go click the little button, turn on transcription. And then you say action item. Well, then you see your stage 1 provider to make sure that your stuff's properly configured so that you can do it. Right? Stop taking notes. Oh, hopefully not. No outbursts in the audience, please. So take your notes, pay attention to your meetings, have fun with it, come out of that, pull the action items out with the keywords, and move on with your life. You've now taken away all the note-taking distraction, or if you have an entire person that does this job, please dedicate them to something else.
You have, let's say, for example, we have an actual meeting, a regular meeting. Can I turn on Teams and record people talking?
You 100% can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have to actually have a Teams meeting to record anything?
Well, all the people could be in the same room,
Yes.
and you just put a Teams meeting in your calendar, turn it on, because Teams doesn't know if you're on the other side of the computer or not. As long as the microphone's there, it'll record whatever's happening.
Whatever's happening.
That's right.
Yeah, you don't want it randomly recorded.
Not like Google phones. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Google. Depends on where you put it. So again, if you're in your boardroom, so let's take this instance as an example. If we had a Teams meeting up here with the camera and everything, it would record everyone here in our entire meeting. But there's nobody in the other end, so it just wouldn't record anybody from the other side. That's it. Yeah.
So you can have it transcribe, you can have it record. It'll do both of them, and you can go back. So for interviews, for example, we were having an HR conversation. When we do interviews, we turn on both transcription and recording. So anybody, if Jermaine's interviewing somebody and I wasn't able to attend, I can just go and watch the recording of it. Or you have multiple stages of an interviewing process. Instead of, if you can't get maybe you have a committee of 5 people that are doing hiring and getting schedules working all at the same time, is next to impossible. If you record the screening calls, then people can sit there and they can watch the interviews, and they can get caught up to date just like as they were in the interviews. You can move people a lot faster through the interview process so that you don't lose out on candidates. Good idea?
Maybe one more. We'll squeeze one in and then we'll continue.
So go ahead.
With the interview piece, are there, I guess, forms that the candidate would have to presumably sign to have themselves being recorded?
So there's a notification that pops up, same as with Zoom. You know, when you record in Zoom, it says this meeting is now being recorded. Same thing happens with Teams. As soon as you turn on transcription or recording, it pops up right on your screen and it says this is now being.
Yeah. So no secret recordings. That was your question? Yeah, there's no secret recordings. Everything's open on the table. Okay, we're going to comb you through this, and then we'll come back for more questions. So just in case you can't get everybody together. You know, Brendan's off golfing, Mike's off with his kids in Disney, I'm somewhere in Argentina, and we need approvals to be signed because we all need to review the same document and get it approved so we can buy the company plane. We can just pop this straight into our group chat in Teams, add the document to it, because again, Teams is the front end, but SharePoint and your foundation from stage 1 is your back end. So the same document that we have in our SharePoint site pulls into Teams. Whoever sends the document out sends it to the group of people they need to review it, and it'll remind you to review it. You review the document, you add your comments, it's all in the common space, and then everybody signs off, and nobody has to be in the same place. You don't have to go running to the desk. Oh no, it's 4:45, Adam's left the office. Now I can't get this signed until tomorrow. No, he can sign it while driving. Please don't do that. That's not really legal. Okay, we'll move along. It's a little larger than that. Come now. It's just the orange. It's really brilliant orange. And polls. So again, you know, I don't know about you guys, but we do lunch Tuesdays for our team at our offices. And every Tuesday, it's like, oh, what do you want to eat? Well, I don't know. What do you want to eat? And I was like, well, what do you want to eat? So we just send out a forms. In our monthly staff meeting, we'll send a form out before, and people can, you give them a couple of choices, and then they pick what they want, and the choice with the highest number of votes gets that for dinner, and the rest of the people, well, you know, they have to participate.
Is anybody like tons of emails?
Yeah? No? You said no one ever.
Your inbox. So one of the things that we see a lot of times is people send an email saying, hey, what date works best? What date works best for everybody? And then you get 6,000 emails back and forth of what about Tuesday, and what about Friday, and what about this, and what about this? You can take polls and you can add it right into your Outlook. So you can send out an email and say, here are the 3 options for dates, please vote. And people will get in their inbox a poll that they just click, and you will receive 0 emails and the information that you want. And it's a great, so these are what we're trying to do is give you little examples of what you can do with your team, and you can take these little examples of ways to be more productive. Because if you take somebody that was using Zoom and say, hey, you're not using Zoom anymore, you're using Teams, and you just use it the exact same way that you were using Zoom, then they're going to say, well, I like Zoom better because it touched up my appearance a bit more, and I look nicer, and stuff like that, right? Versus you take them to Teams, and then you say, okay, now you're in Teams. You can use polls, you can use approvals, you can use transcription, you can use this. There's a reason you're showing people, and then as you start to show people this, then what they start to do is get a little bit curious. What other options? What else is here that I don't know about? What if I had to gather information from a bigger data source, like forms?
Yeah, all the people who got prizes for forms, and those who didn't, you'll still get a bag, I promise you. Forms. So all that front-end data, whether you use polls or you want to create a form to find out where your, what the company values or priorities are going to be for 2023, you create a small form, send it out to everyone, and then forms will do all the work of aggregating the answers, get your data and stuff together, and then you just go and you click on the responses tab. I know it's really difficult. You go and you click on the question side and you don't say anything, you click on responses, boom, all the information is there and you don't have to do anything about it. Right? Remember when you used to do, let me put all of this into an Excel sheet. What did Sally say? Her response was this to question 4. None of that you need to do. Now we've got here your customer survey. You can do, where's the company retreat's going to be? Literally your grocery list. If it has to happen in your house and you want the grocery list, what do we want? Get it all in there. And you send out the form, you get the data back. not 500 emails to receive what you're looking for. But at the end of the day, you just took a task that would have taken you 25 minutes of your life you would never get back, and now you have it gone out. You don't have to think about it, and when it comes back, you have all the data you need when you need it. Again, important. Stage 1 enables stage 2.
Forms is fantastic. Love forms. Use it all the time. Forms is the back end for polls too, right? Same sort of thing, same sort of application. Okay, so we go through. If we think about our checklist from stage 2, you have it in front of you there. Here are some ideas for how we can get better adoption and utilization of what we have. We talked about SSO apps, same sign-on applications in browser, using transcription for notes and action items, polls and forms, Microsoft approvals. And as you start to look at this sort of stuff, there's tons of other options that are going to pop up for you, right? Microsoft Bookings is another one. If you want to remove kind of people emailing back and forth and want to book, like there's all sorts of these different applications that can help with utilization. Any questions on that before we go on to stage 3? We've had some good questions so far. I just wanted to stop for a quick second to see if there was anything else. Seeing none, we will continue to go. All right. Now it's time for stage 3. Stage 3. Yeah, so Jermaine lets me do stage 3 because stage 3 is the funnest part. This is where I love to talk about. I love to be thinking about business intelligence, thinking about dashboards, thinking about actionable data, thinking about process automation. How do we stop doing manual, repetitive tasks that don't really challenge us as professionals and individuals? How do we show our teams, here's how we eliminate the need to do manual, repetitive tasks, and we start to automate more. So some examples. We had a client that was in the construction industry. We were talking about the construction industry. So we had this good conversation about the construction industry. And there's a bunch of industries that are maybe less likely to adopt technology as fast. And so we had this client. They had people that were going out to construction sites and looking at machines. And they would look at these machines, they'd write down data, and then they would grab their phone, email it back to the office. Some hardworking individual back in the office would then put it into an Excel spreadsheet and then use that Excel spreadsheet to plot the data in a graph. And then they would send it back to the person on site. Now, as I describe this, this might sound ridiculous to all of you, right? Because it seems like a super manual process. But I could guarantee you, if you looked across any business, there are examples of processes like this in different industries where people are doing manual stuff because we've always done it that way, right? So then we bring in the power of change and we say, hey, hold on a second. We've got this Microsoft 365 subscription that we're using. So we can use this thing called PowerAutomate. And we've got forms. Oh, forms is a really easy way. So instead of emailing the data back, we're just going to plug it into forms. And then when it's in forms, hold on a second, we can use forms PowerAutomate to automate the collection and analysis of data and then create an app through PowerBI that spits the data back to us, graphs it, and gives us actionable business intelligence. So this individual here takes the clipboard, tosses it in the garbage, and instantaneously eliminates, well, not instantaneously, but when the app is created, when they put the data in, they get that feedback right away. And they get that graph, they get the information they need, and it involves nobody in the back office anymore. All of those resources can get to reapplied to something else, right? Something with impact. Let me give you another example. This is our friendly accounting individual. So I love finance people. Now, finance people are critical to any business running. This particular finance person has all sorts of invoices that she needs to print out because they get emailed in and then manually input them into the accounting system. And there's paper everywhere. It's just everywhere, right? And we all have this challenge. We all are getting invoices that are coming in through email now, right? So why do we need to have a human being input an invoice that comes into a billing email box? Can't we just automate that process? And so there's lots of capability out there that you take something that happens every single month, week, maybe even day in organizations where people are manually entering data coming from that's already digitized, that's going into an email inbox, automate the process of getting it into your QuickBooks or into your other accounting system or into your ERP or whatever you're using. It's a great opportunity for automating a repetitive process. And then we get into the data world. We all in our businesses have these disparate pockets of data hanging around, right? Where we have one application has data over here, and one application has data over here. If we can get the ERP, if we can get our financial systems, if we can get our HRIS system, if we can get all of this information all talking to each other, then we could get real-time data that we can then make decisions on. If we can see what's happening on inventory, if we can see what's happening on our margins, if we can make decisions right away, if we can see what's happening from a professional services basis on time utilization. And we can do that in the time that we can make decisions. And you can do it through PowerBI is a amazingly strong and useful tool in order to do this. So if you have a look at that stage 3 checklist, our stage 3 goes through using PowerAutomate, which you already have as part of your Microsoft 365 subscription. You can actually record manual tasks, and you could get your computer through the PowerAutomate tool to do them for you. There's a learning tool that it has. So it can learn as you're going through and you're doing tasks, and you can have it then do that task for you in the future. You're already paying for it. Power Apps is a whole bunch of different apps that are built that are called part of the Power Platform in your Microsoft 365 subscription. And then Power BI is that data dashboarding tool, data visualization tool. In some cases, you need to pay, depending on what you're doing with it, you may need to upgrade a license for the Power BI part. But just to view data, in a lot of cases, you don't need to worry about that sort of stuff. So then we come back to our productivity roadmap, and just to put a little bow on it, we have stage 1 where the foundation, we're getting rid of servers, getting things into a common data source instead of having data all over the place. We're reducing the amount of data that is all over the place, right? We're getting rid of having too many apps. We're enabling our team by creating a better hybrid working environment. And then we have that foundation of cybersecurity and making sure that we're secure, so that we're not dealing with email hacks and ransomware and stuff like that. Then we go into stage 2, better utilize the applications we're already paying for, work on that adoption and utilization, and then stage 3 into that fun world of automation and business intelligence. Any questions about that dashboard, or about that roadmap? Dashboard, roadmap. I was getting all excited about the dashboarding. Okay, cool. All right, we have a couple minutes left, and we just wanted to take the time, just take about 5 minutes and go through an important way to implement this, right? And this is a belief that we have in terms of how we think technology, strategy, IT support should be done. And it also happens to be how we do things. Go figure. So here's the issue that we have in the IT world. We have a lot of IT folks that are really good at, when there's an issue, it disrupts your work, they will fix it, right? The Wi-Fi doesn't work, my Outlook is broken, my VPN connection, or something's going slow, or I can't log into my remote desktop, right? You get it fixed. But the problem is that gets fixed and it just gets repeated over and over and over again across a company, across multiple companies, across an industry. We have this repetitive cycle of IT. And it's a reactive approach to IT. And really what we want to do is we want to break that chain. And so the way that we look at things, we say, okay, if there's an issue, it's a data point, right? It disrupts somebody's work. We need to solve it, of course, because people need to work, right? If you can't access the Wi-Fi, if you can't access your Outlook, if you're having a VPN issue or you're having a this issue or that issue, we got to solve it. But then once it's solved, for the last bunch of years, we've been creating best practices standards. We've been saying, okay, if we set up Wi-Fi in the following way, this will make sure we don't have this problem. If we set up printers in the following way, nobody's ever going to have a printer problem again. So we create a best practice standard. To us, a best practice standard is hardware, software, configurations, processes to support. Very detailed way of looking at things. So we create all these best practices standards, and they're the setup that is going to achieve the outcome that we want to achieve. Like, we just want to be able to control P and comes off the printer, right? Or log in the Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi works. Or whatever, like we can apply it to across, we've got 700 different best practices. And then the challenge is we come into an organization and we say, well, we've got all these best practices. How do we get them aligned with these best practices? So we need to look and we need to identify and say, where are the gaps? Where are things not aligned to best practices? And then you can't, in a small business world, even in a medium-sized or large business world, you can't just come in and say, I'm going to implement 700 best practices all at once, because it's going to cost a boatload of money, and it's not realistic. So you need to have a business impact layer, right? So let's take our wireless best practices example. Some of you may have an office that nobody uses wireless. Like once a month, somebody comes in and says, hey, can I sit in the boardroom and work? And they access the Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So when the wireless is outside of best practice, the business impact is really low. Doesn't really matter. So you're not going to put that as a high priority in business strategy. Versus we have a client that runs a series of schools, and all their students, thousands of students, access the Wi-Fi every single day. And if the Wi-Fi is not working, nothing happens. Classes don't run. It's the end of the world. So for them, the business impact of being out of best practice with wireless is huge, right? So if you start from a fundamental principle of best practices, and then you filter it through a business impact lens, that's how you create really good, really impactful technology strategy. You can all figure out how old your computers are and to replace them every 4 years and that sort of stuff. Like that is technology basics. But the way that you get to a much more impactful strategy is based on those best practices and starting to look at things like utilization and productivity and cybersecurity and going through all those different best practices and putting together a really good technology strategy. So at our company, Jermaine leads the team that implements this. And he's going to talk about how we implement it.
Thank you. Thank you for tossing me up there. What's that called, a layup? I'm from Canada. It's basketball season. Yeah, so, I mean, just to follow along from Brendan's kind of preamble and really digging into how we end up at that strategy cycle and breaking that repeatable thing of, it's a definition of insanity, doing the same process over and over and expecting a different outcome. So for us to break that and get into it, a lot of it goes into making decisions with information. So you're making informed decisions on a day-to-day basis. And for you to get the best out of, if we're to tie all of it back to the process of everybody here, or at least 80%, I think it was 79, said we want to get more out of what we're using, and we want to build efficiency in the working environment so that we do more with the same people and the same stuff that we have. And so just to kind of highlight how that process works, that alignment process we have the proactive side of the environment, where they go out and they look at your environment against those best practices. They make sure that they dig into it to see where you're out of alignment or where it can be realigned to improve that process or stop the issues to come out that cause the disruption from that process. And they do that by looking at your environment, comparing it to the standards, and if the standards are old or out of whack for your environment, they align it, bring the environment back up to speed so that they eliminate the necessity for you to react to that issue. And then the other part of it is all the information that culminates from those visits, the number of alignments, the things that are reviewed on each visit, around 80 to 100 of the standards get reviewed at each visit. And if you do that over a 12-month period, you're going to get through all of the relevant standards for your organization and come out with good data at the end that says, well, okay, I'm coming to you to recommend you purchase these wireless access points with this type of subscription and have it installed at your location per square foot of this amount. Well, how did you come up with that? Well, here are the 500 tickets you had coming in as an issue for Wi-Fi because nobody could connect to the guest Wi-Fi or the boardroom Wi-Fi, etc. We've aligned those standards in order for you to ensure that you get the best quality out of your Wi-Fi for your students or your visiting delegates, etc. Your foundation Wi-Fi for the equipment, the process, the configuration, all needs to be completed. Here's how you complete it. Install this, configure it this way, move forward, stop having Wi-Fi issues, or at least not as many as before. And that's how the process works. And then everything else feeds into the cycle of the circle, which then reduces the amount of support tickets, which then increases the efficiency in your environment. Because if your person isn't on the phone or an email waiting for someone to fix an issue, they're working.
And it makes them, at the end of the day, much more productive, right? And what we see across our industry is most IT companies have a help desk, have project work, and do some sort of remote monitoring and management and patching and that sort of stuff. But they're missing the proactive piece. So we have businesses all over the place that are missing that ongoing advice. And they're dealing with too many technical problems, they're dealing with way too much risk from a cybersecurity perspective because nobody's looking at these things and auditing on a regular basis because all of their resources are into the reactive side of things. So we want to be useful. Even beyond what we've talked about. Hopefully this was useful and interesting information. If anybody wants to go deeper and go a little bit more into your organization, we have a Microsoft 365 productivity audit that we are offering today. So if you're interested, this is powered through Microsoft Forms. Arem did a great job, put together a Microsoft Forms. Arem, by the way, is not a member of our technical team, and she was able to set up, without any help from any of our technical team, a Microsoft Forms that anybody you can use your QR code, use this QR code, fill it out. What we'll do, we'll look at your 365 environment, what licenses you're using, how you're using 365, what applications, how you're doing it. We'll look at the back-end utilization amongst your staff. There's a bunch of things, and then we'll give to you a bunch of recommendations on how you can use your 365 a lot better and improve the productivity of your team. As an appreciation for coming today, and we're happy to talk. So 2 ways you can fill that out, and we will contact you and schedule it. We can schedule it today before you leave, and please, or you can just send us an email or call. If you want, and we can book it in. Please don't forget, if you sneak out of here, please don't forget to get your special prizes, because everybody gets a prize as you're walking out. And thank you very much for coming here. Taryn, thank you for having us. It's always a pleasure to run sessions like this. Thanks a lot.